Hi, I'm Jennifer Pagic. We're here today with John. He's going to explain to us all about the process for siting solar panels for his home and how the system works. So take it away, John.
Okay, we have a 5 kilowatt, that's 5,000 watt system on our rooftop with a Fronius, what do we got? We have a Fronius 5100 inverter, and that's basically the whole system. If the panels produce the electricity, the inverter, the Fronius inverter changes the what is it?
The current coming in.
Yeah, it's DC. It's direct current
So it has
from
to
the
be converted
panels, and it
to
has to be
alternating.
converted into AC, alternating current. So the inverter does that. We have 33 sharp 167 watt panels that makes up the solar array. They're made in America, and they were installed by Akina Solar of California way back in the...
Yeah, John's home was one of the first ones in the area.
Yeah, it was the first. We were the first in Manchester, and since then a number of people have gotten solar panels, so we've kind of broke the ground on that.
So about how long ago was it?
I think it was 2005. It should say so in here. I haven't looked at this in a long time. It just, the good thing about this is it makes electricity, and we don't do anything. We don't even monitor it. It just,
No maintenance, no
no
monitoring.
maintenance. It does its own thing, and we're connected to the grid. So our electric bill is a net meter bill. So what electricity we use, say at night, we pay for. And then when we make more electricity than we can use during the day, it evens out in our bill. So right now we're doing about 1/3 of our total electric bill. And our house is, it's all electric. We have electric stove, well, refrigerator naturally, electric hot water, a hot tub, microwave, electric dryer. You know, all these things use a lot of electricity. So for a 5 kilowatt system, that's doing pretty well to do 1/3 of our total power.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Okay,
Is there anything you want? Oh, this is Lee from
Akina Solar.
Akina Solar.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we're talking about your roof and what you could possibly do with solar up there. Yeah, as we
Just get a
were,
better angle on here.
discussing, the maximum size, basically in Connecticut, if you put solar on a residential roof, you can go up to at least 10,000 kilowatts in size if you had enough roof space for it. However, Connecticut Clean Energy Fund, which is providing the subsidy to help, fund the installation of solar, they'll only subsidize up to 5 kilowatts. If you wanted to put an additional 5 kilowatts on there, you could, but then you're paying full price for the rest of that. So most people in Connecticut are not putting in the systems any larger than the 5 kilowatt size. As I was saying, that 5 kilowatts, that's the size of the system in terms of the maximum power it could produce at a peak in an instant, but it doesn't necessarily reflect how much power that will produce over time and how much of your utility bill it'll bring down. You have a roof that's facing almost due south. You're only about 10 or 15 degrees off of directly south, which is beautiful. You have an 812 pitch. That's the slope of your roof, and basically 812 or 912, somewhere in that range, is perfect for Connecticut. If you're a little bit flatter or a little bit steeper, that's also fine. You have one tree that's shading it, and that's coming down anyway because it's dying. So the end result is you're going to have a very well-oriented, nicely sloped, perfectly sunny roof, which is ideal. Now, let's say that you went ahead and decided to go for the full 5 kilowatt system. That system, based on being on this roof, facing in that direction, at that angle, with full sun, in Connecticut, given Connecticut's typical annual weather, the amount of sunny days and cloudy days, the length of our days, if you go further south, the days get longer. If you go further north, they get shorter, especially in the winter. But based on all of those things, that size system would actually produce about 6,000 kilowatt hours of power over an entire year. And based it tends to cost about $8 a watt for a typical house with a typical asphalt or composition shingle roof with no, odd surprises that are going to make the cost higher. It's typically going to cost about $8 a watt, which means that if you put in this 5 kilowatt system, the cost before the subsidies from Connecticut tends to come in somewhere in the range of $40,000, $41,000, $42,000, $43,000, somewhere in that ballpark. Connecticut, for that size system, is chipping in about $25,000. So the cost to the homeowner up front is going to be somewhere around $16,000, $17,000, $18,000. Environment. It's good for the grid. It's what's called distributed generation. You have lots of people producing little amounts of power rather than a few big power plants or something like that. And what this does is it helps support the grid, especially during peak times when people are using lots of air conditioning in the summer, and the power companies issue warnings telling you to try to reduce your consumption because they're having trouble with the load. So by having distributed generation, we can help to prevent brownouts or blackouts. And that's important. Not only is it inconvenient, but it also is very expensive for the state economy because you have businesses that are down because they don't have power. You have a lot of downtime, so it's very expensive. So they see as this way is kind of an insurance policy against that. In the long term, it is good for the state's economy. Fuel prices are rising. We all know what oil is up to now. Natural gas has also gone up quite a lot. Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey probably are producing 50 or 60% of their power from oil and natural gas, and then some is going to be coming from coal, some from nuclear, some from hydropower. And like I said, it's good for the environment. Coal, oil, natural gas, they all produce carbon dioxide when they're burned, which is a greenhouse gas. They also, especially coal, produce a lot of sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides. Those things are respiratory irritants. They're not going to cause cancer, but for people who are asthmatic, for young children, they can just cause problems, more sick time for workers because they're getting colds more often than they would if they didn't live downwind from a power plant like that. So again, there's an economic cost. Children being absent from school, especially for asthmatic children, but other children, they're more inclined to get respiratory infections, just like colds, from being downwind from a place like that. The other thing is both sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides, when they're in the atmosphere and rain comes down, the rain picks up bits of those gases, and when those gases get combined into water, they actually form nitric and nitrous acids and sulfuric acid. So that's what your acid rain is. And acid rain, it damages crops, it damages forests, it damages fisheries by changing the pH of the water. It eats away at limestone, it eats away at concrete, which is made mostly from limestone. It eats away at metal. So it has, again, there's a real cost to these things. A lot of things that, environmentalists are saying, these are bad. Even if you're very cynical and you don't care, a bit about nature, ultimately it has an economic cost. Cost to crops, cost to fisheries, cost to forestry, cost to infrastructure, cost to buildings. The way the economics of solar work is that, you know, you've paid this amount of money to have the system installed. And for some people, it's not about having the system pay for itself because they're doing it for environmental reasons or, you know, some of the other reasons I mentioned. But for most people, they have an expectation that the system over time is going to pay for itself, and then they'll get some profit after that. So that system that cost you about $18,000 out of pocket to install, really in the course of somewhere around 10 or 11, 12 years, it will have paid for itself completely. And then over the next 20 or 30 years, you'll be making just pure profit. And again, based on that slowly increasing cost of energy, the total return on investment over 30 years, based on that original $18,000, you could be making an additional $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in profit. So the system, over its lifetime, gives you a very good return on investment. If you compare that to putting the money in the bank, it's probably like getting something like 6, 7, 8% annual interest on your bank account. So compared to today's 1 or 2%, that's very, very good. And what makes it even better is that unlike the interest you would get from a bank, that's interest income and it's taxable. The return on investment you get from solar is an avoided energy cost. It's not income, it's not a dividend, it's not taxable. So this is a tax-free return on investment. Yeah, so it's really the equivalent of 10, 11, 12, 13% from a taxable investment. So it actually, the numbers work out quite well over that time. One thing I wanted to mention, we had discussed that you're probably using about 10 to 12,000 kilowatt hours per year, and this system would probably produce about half of that. It's important for me to point out that the economics, how much the solar, how long it takes for it to pay for itself, and how much profit you get after that, doesn't really matter whether that 5 kilowatt system is producing 10% of what you actually need or 90%. So, you know, some people look at a 5 kilowatt system and they say, oh, it's only producing, you know, let's say 25% of what I need.
Right.
What I can show is that the way the numbers work out is that it doesn't matter. It's going to pay for itself in this many years, and it's going to give you this much profit, this much return on investment, no matter how much of your total usage it's providing. Because that payback period and the amount of profit, the return on investment, is based on how much it costs to put in, how much electricity it produces over its lifetime, and what's the value of that electricity.
Okay.
So,
All right, so I was hoping for something put up there and knock 75% off my electric bill immediately forever.
yeah,
That's
no,
not
a lot
gonna
of,
happen.
no, that's not gonna happen.
Okay.
And, you know, 10 years from now, it might be that they've gotten a new technology, or maybe they've gotten another 20 or 30%, you know, efficiency, so that that amount of roof space could produce all of it. But right now, 5K is about what you're going to fit up there. The other thing to remember is that if you go to, let's say, 10K, let's say you had enough roof space to put 10K up there, Connecticut is only paying you for the first 5.
Right.
The next 5K are going to cost you, you know, a full $45,000. And when I talked about, let's say the payback for your system is going to be 12 years for a 5K system. If you are paying, and you're paying just under half price, you're paying about $3 out of $8 per watt for those. For the next half, you're paying full price. The way the economics work out, I would have to sit down with a calculator and figure it out exactly, but it's something like, instead of paying for itself in 12 years, it's going to pay for itself in somewhere between 18 and 20 years, if it's not subsidized.
Okay.
And, you know, which is, for some people, that's a good choice. You know, they're expecting to be in their house for 30 years,
Right.
so they're going to get the 10 years of profit. And for some people, they like the idea that they're just not, you know, giving anything to the utilities, or they're almost completely independent. But for most people, you know, that's not a good choice. They want this to be a reasonably good investment over time.
Right, for us, this is more of an environmental choice,
Mhm.
you know, and, so we'll go with that. I
Okay.
don't wanna waste a lot of your time.
That's not the way it usually turns, huh?
Nah.
That's a hustle. Look at that.
The bumper sticker didn't lie. And yeah, that roof's gotta be about as hot as it can get, I would think.
You mentioned too when you had it installed that they had a number of ways to kind of cut down on the price.
Well, the Clean Energy Fund, if you look on your electric bill, there's a section of it that a couple dollars of it goes towards the Clean Energy Fund. I don't know if it's still working, but back then they paid $5 per watt, up to $5 per watt. And the system we have cost about $8 a watt at the time. This is
So
back
it's
in
over half of
2000.
it.
2005, I think it was. I should know this too. They paid for more than half of it because, well, if you do the math, 5,000 watts at $8 a watt is about $45,000, and our out-of-pocket was about 18.
Have you
So-
figured out if you have you broken even on your investment yet?
Yeah, because the month after we were installed and up and running, electric prices doubled under Rome. They doubled the cost. They privatized the electric company and doubled the cost of electricity. March 9th, 2005.
So we're back with John. He's going to tell us a little bit more about the environmental savings and financial savings aspect of having a solar system installed.
Yeah, back when we got our system, the description right here, this is in their proposal actually, and the system came out pretty close to what they proposed. It's 5.5 kilowatt direct current, consisting of 33 Sharp 167 watt solar modules and one Fronius IG 5100 inverter. That's the entire system. It says the system will generate approximately 6,181 kilowatt hours annually at our location. This is what they estimated it. And it will reduce our annual utility electric expense by 69%, which it was doing at first. Your investment reaches an economic break-even point in 14 to 15 years. And when they double the cost of electricity, you could basically have
That. Wow, yeah.
so it's paid for itself.
It's already paid
almost
for itself.
by now. Savings yield pre-tax rate of return of 6.1% for design life of the system, which is 30 years. First year savings and utility expense they expected to be $971. Now all these, I couldn't prove that all these things exist.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Once we got it installed, it's there, you know. And it's basically so everyone can see. You know, we're on a busy street, everyone can look up and say, oh, look, solar panels, how neat.
Well,
You know,
clearly,
and-
clearly you've inspired a lot of people in Manchester.
Yeah, because there's at least maybe 15 systems now that I know
Wow.
of. And they're mostly larger than ours, but now the Clean Energy Fund we own our system. And It's bought and paid for, but now, if you want to get a solar array, I believe you have to lease it,
Okay.
which is like leasing a car, which is totally ridiculous to me. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
I'd rather own something.
Own something outright.
You know, so there may be benefits in leasing it, but you're paying for the system, you know, and you may be paying less for electricity, but you're still paying for the system over time, and you don't own it. So I don't understand that. At any rate, the appraised value of our property was supposedly increased by $19,000 by installing this system. Avoided CO2 in the 30-year life of the system is, according to them, 137,463 pounds of CO2. Avoided NO2, NOx, I guess that's what, oxide?
Nitrous oxide.
Nitrous oxide is 257 pounds. And avoided SO2,
Sulfur dioxide.
sulfur dioxide. Yeah,
Yeah.
you must have gone to school, huh?
You guys better know this by now too.
Sulfur dioxide in its 30-year life is 399 pounds.
So you want to think about, you know, if John and Mary hadn't installed the solar, they'd probably be heating with fossil fuels. And not only do those do particulate pollutants into the air, but the carbon dioxide released into the air, you know by now, it's a very potent greenhouse gas. So that's pretty amazing that you can guesstimate how much
This
you
is,
save.
yeah, well, this is for electricity.
Yeah.
We heat with oil, steam heat.
Oh, okay, you do heat with oil.
Well,
My bad.
because if we were to heat with electricity, it's just not an efficient way to heat a
Yeah,
house.
yep.
Now we've gotten a pellet stove and we have another one
Do that
coming.
as well.
So we've cut down our oil consumption to less than a tank, less than one tank of
Oh,
oil.
that's awesome.
A heating season, which is it's considerable.
That is.
You know,
Yeah.
when you consider it used to be almost 2.
Almost two.
And this year we're going to try not to use the oil furnace at all. with
So
the
most of the,
pellet stove.
you know, in Connecticut, you can sign up for, on your electrical bill, you have the choice of who your supplier is, but the majority of suppliers are using fossil fuels or natural gas somewhere in the process, so.
And
Even if you're still heating with oil,
and
you're
worse than that,
still
they may
saving
be
it.
coming from the Yankee plant, the nuclear power
A nuclear
plant.
power plant, there you go.
Except I don't believe we get any benefit from that. I think that's all sold on the
That's all
market.
sold in market, yep.
Sold
Yeah, I
at
don't think you
market
can.
value. So, but we get all the detriment of it, all the cancer and all the tumors and all the exposure to radiation from that. But this is clean.
Yeah, the sun doesn't hurt you unless you're out there too long without sunlight,
Or
right?
you look into it too long, yeah. Or you fly too close.
So thank you so much, John. It's really cool to know that they gave you a lot of good information, you know, give you a good flyer so that you can, you know, make a decision if it's best for you. And I think it's particularly great that it's added to the value of your house, so.
Yeah, the thing with solar is if everybody had it, we wouldn't need nuclear power, and we wouldn't need coal burning power plants. And there's no such thing as clean coal.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
such thing as clean
And
coal.
almost
and no
all of
such
the
thing as
energy
safe
providers that
nuclear
you
power.
can pick, they're you know, burning something, or there's some system that's ramped up, and when the energy demand is low at night, they tamp that power plant down. They tamp the coal plant down, and all that energy is wasted.
Yeah.
So you think about it, solar, as the sun goes down, you're less likely to need that energy anyways at you know.
We'll use
at night,
less
so.
at night.
Yeah, and
Well-
because you're in the grid, it's getting stored, so it's pretty cool. Nothing's getting wasted.
Right. We're selling our excess energy back to the company.